Namaskar and a very warm welcome to Victoria Memorial Hall. We are delighted to welcome you all today for a special lecture titled 25 Years of Tibet Museum, and we are honored to have Mr. Tenzin Topdhen to deliver the lecture. Mr. Topdhen is the director of the Tibet Museum. I want to request the Secretary Curator of Victoria Memorial Hall, Dr. Shayan Bhattacharya, to please present a token of our welcome and gratitude to the Director of Tibet Museum. Let us join with an applause. Mr. Tenzin Topdhen is a Tibetan refugee and was born and raised in an ordinary family in a small town of Dharamshala, India. With over 15 years of senior executive experience across a multinational company and the Central Tibetan administration, he has developed a strong multi-sector expertise in his pharmacy background, success in competitive exams, and professional work in healthcare and education. His MBA corporate leadership and administrative roles within the CTA have further strengthened his experience in livelihood development and strategic planning. As a core member of the leadership team behind the creation of the new Tibet Museum, he gained valuable insight into art, culture, and religion, enabling him to actively promote and preserve Tibet's rich heritage through meaningful collaboration. As director of Tibet Museum, he has demonstrated strong leadership in advancing key community objectives. Previously an assistant manager in two corporate organizations, he played a vital role in enhancing business efficiency, operations, and continuity across North India and Nepal. As a leader, he believes in transparency and grounding his work in the values of love and compassion. He draws inspiration from the teachings of His Holiness the Great 14th Dalai Lama and serves to live by the principles of truth and non-violence. He lives in MacLeod-Ganj, Dharamshala, with his parents, wife, and their daughter. Welcome, sir. I request Secretary and Curator, Sir, Dr. Bhattacharya, to please say a few words before we begin.
Very good evening. It's a great honor and privilege for me to be called upon to say a few words on this very special occasion when my very dear friend, Mr. Tenzin from the Tibet Museum, who is going to deliver today's lecture, the 25 years of Tibetan Museum. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the concept of museum now is changing. So we are nowadays more inclusive. Our object can't speak, but they have many stories to tell. So that is why we have invited the Honorable Director of Tibet Museum, and I'm so grateful that you have kindly accepted our invitation. I'm not going to take much of your time. Once again, I welcome the Director of Tibet Museum, and on behalf of the Victoria Memorial Hall, I welcome everyone to the Victoria Memorial for this lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We now invite the Director of Tibet. Mr. Topdhen would like to present something from his museum to Dr. Shayan Bhattacharya.
Yes. So this is a Tibetan scarf. So we opened on. Thank you. Actually, this scarf has a lot of meaning. This, I must say, this is like pre-modern globalization, because Tibetan scarf, the way of offering it comes from India. Because India used to give Gendaful and shawl. We learn it from India, but we don't have that much of shawl and the flower in Tibet. So what we did is we buy this from China, because China is rich in silk. So you see the China, Tibet, and India. They have this pre-modern, I should say, globalization. It's already there, but nowadays it's not from China. But this itself is showing, how beautifully we can, harmoniously live together. Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Shubh Sandhyan. So that is what I learned. Good evening, respected Director Dr. Sayan Bhattacharya and Sir Pranav Prakashji, and my distinguished faculties member and my dear friend. Before I talk about the Tibet Museum, I would like to talk a little bit about the life and legacy of the great His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Because for the modern world, he has been a beacon of moral ethics. And this year, particularly 2025 and 26, we have been celebrating the 90th birthday of His Holiness Dalai Lama as a year of compassion, as a year of karuna. So His Holiness often says, my religion is simple, my religion is kindness. So that one line is very, very important for this modern world to understand that no matter whatever religion we follow, but kindness is the central of all the major religion in the world. So I would like to start with, probably most of you must be knowing about when His Holiness visit this beautiful, important heritage city of India, Kolkata. So this is the image when His Holiness Dalai Lama visit Kolkata in 2015, 12 January at the Mother Teresa house in Kolkata, and he is being invited and greeted by Archbishop of Kolkata, Thomas D'Souza. Another image is the very next day on 13th January 2015, His Holiness gave a talk at Presidency University. And then right after 2 years, 2017, he again visited this beautiful city, and where he addressed the member and guest of Indian Chamber of Commerce. So why I show this is because His Holiness always says, I'm son of India. When he says that I'm son of India, he really mean that, because physically His Holiness Dalai Lama from 1959 till now, for last 66 years, his entire body, he says that his entire body is survived because of the Indian dal, chapati and roti, and more important that, more profoundly, he gave credit to all the Nalanda masters, the Indian ancient wisdom, because whatever he is teaching all across the world is actually nothing but the message of Indian civilization, ahimsa and karuna. So that is the two weapon which he carries and which he talks all across the world. So this is very important. So he really means that, when he says son of India, he means that he's physically, emotionally, mentally belongs to this country. So little bit of His Holiness Dalai Lama's, life and legacy. He was born in northeast part of Tibet, very remote, in a family of a farmer. And at the age 2, he was recognized as the 14th Dalai Lama. And then at the age 4, he was taken from far east of northeast of Tibet to the capital city of Tibet, that is Lhasa. And at the age 15, he had to take both political and spiritual power of Tibet. But just after a few years, at the age of 24, he had to leave Tibet because Chinese occupied Tibet in 1959. So what I want to show here is, in this last 66 years, holy city of India, he have met a lot of Indian leaders. You can see a few pictures, starting from Jawaharlal Nehru till to Narendra Modi. He have met almost all the great leaders, not only in politics, but even in religion, humanity, many of the leaders he met. And this image shows about His Holiness, from 1973 onward, he went to Europe. And from 1979 onward, he went to America, northern part of the world. So he met almost, so many leaders, and he went across 62 different countries till date, and he went across, 500 times meeting with these great leaders. And as the core of his message of meeting these leaders is because they have this power, but his purpose of meeting is because he want to tell them, you have the power, with comes, the morality. Always he talk about these two unique value of India, ahimsa and karuna. These are his two weapons where he talks to all these great leaders of the world. Same thing, these are the few other images where His Holiness met many the renowned leaders, and these are the images which talks about His Holiness have been conferred almost 345 different awards and accolades. And one of the most important is Nobel Peace Prize in 1989, and US Congressional Gold Medal was awarded in 2007, and the Templeton Award in 2012. As I was visiting Mother Teresa museum this morning, Mother Teresa is also awarded the Nobel Peace Prize and US Congressional Gold Medal 10 years before His Holiness Dalai Lama. Mother Teresa was awarded Nobel Peace Prize in 1979 and US Congressional Gold Medal in 1997. So I think there's a lot of similarities, and His Holiness also visited the place of Mother Teresa. And this is also very important if you happen to follow His Holiness Dalai Lama teaching, the core 4 principle of His Holiness Dalai Lama that he want to take throughout his life. The first one is the promotion of basic human value. His Holiness Dalai Lama and the Tibetan Buddhists have serious discussion with Western scientists. And what is the main finding of this is they all found that the basic innate goodness of humanity is positive. So if we have this fundamental goodness, whatever we are right now manifesting, but fundamentally we all have this positive innate goodness. So we all should come together to promote this unique and innate goodness of humanity. So that is his commitment number 1. His commitment number 2 is interreligious harmony. We have seen a lot of bloodshed in the name of religion. We have similarities across this major religion. Our philosophy and our root may be different, but our objective is same. That is to promote love, compassion, and kindness. So if that objective is same, we have the place of discussion. So that is his second commitment, the interreligious harmony. And the third one is to safeguard the unique culture and ecology of Tibet. Because Tibet unique culture and Tibet ecology is not only for the 6 million Tibetan. I'll show you ahead, there are a lot of importance of Tibet across Southeast Asia. And the fourth one is the revival of ancient Indian knowledge. Because he sees India as the leader of the future. Because young Indian have already acquired the Western knowledge, but in some way he sees that these young Indians are forgetting their root, their powerful, ancient, unique heritage. So this is what His Holiness is trying to revive wherever he goes. I'm sure when he visited Presidency University, he must have talked about that fourth commitment. And there are around 148 books that His Holiness Dalai Lama have written and co-authored across the globe. And there are also, as I said, serious discussion between modern science and Buddhism. So there have been 39 Mind and Life conferences. So then I'll quickly run through what exactly is Tibet. Because as many of you have very vague or maybe more knowledge than me. So Tibet, as you see here, has around 46,000 glaciers. And the average altitude of Tibet is 4,300 meters above the sea level. So that's why Tibet is known as the third pole and the roof of the world. Third pole means north and south pole, and after that Tibet is known as the third pole. And as I was saying, the third commitment of His Holiness Dalai Lama is safeguard of the Tibetan ecology. Because as you see, there are 10 major rivers that flow from Tibet to entire Southeast Asia. And these 10 rivers are giving birth or lifeline to almost 2 billion population of the downstream country. And all of these 10 rivers are transnational. They start from Tibet, but they go across different countries. They don't die in Tibet. They don't flow in Tibet. So these rivers now being used as a weapon. We all know what is happening in these rivers as well. And this I want to show because the China right now we see is 60% of China is being occupied post 1950s. So this is the map showing the actual boundaries of the occupied countries. And then I'll quickly run through the topic that I need to talk, the Tibet Museum, which is the section belonging to the Department of Information and International Relations. If you happen to visit Dharamsala, we have a full functioning Tibetan government in exile. Thanks to the Indian government that we were given, land to build up our own governing system parallel to the Indian government. We have the governing system in the form of democratic, where all the three pillars, judiciary, executive and parliament, all are functioning over there. So underneath the executive, one of the department is Department of Information, and we are one of the section belonging to that Department of Information. And our museum was inaugurated by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama on 30th April 2000. And last year we celebrated the 25th anniversary of our museum. And the core principle or core ethos of our museum is we believe that the primary process is the collection, because since our museum is comparing to Victoria Museum, it's very, very new. It's just nascent, and we came here because we are new, and we came to the pilgrim of museum. This Kolkata city is always been our one of the top bucket lists, because this have kept the heritage alive. And I'm accompanied by my museum staff. All of them are back at the back. Primarily we function with these three functions, that is the collection followed by the conservation. But whatever we conserve, since we are in refugee, we are in exile, we need to tell the story. We need to tell the true story. One of the fundamental thing of the museum is to safeguard the true narrative. I think that's very, very important, to tell uncensored, unbiased, the truth. That is very important. So whatever we conserve, we try to tell it to our younger generation, to our friends. And the first one, the collection that you see, we have been fortunate that we have collected around 1,300 objects in last 6 to 7 years. All of them are donated by the Tibetan across the exile. So we Tibetan are spread across 27 different countries in North America, South America, and Europe. So all of them have donated to our museum. And prior to that, we have 40,000 different photographs and negative. And these are another few images of our collected object. And as I said, the photographic archive used to be our prime resources before 2017. And the two methods by which we collect and we document this photographic, the archive is photo identification project. Because since we are a refugee, we are a displaced community, when we came from Tibet, we don't think of album and all this, we just ran away. But slowly we try to, dig into our own history, our own memories. So this is very important. We go across household, try to identify the photos, who are these people, So this is one of the the project under the collection. And second one is family album project. We go with the scanner and ask them to, donate us at least the digital version. So this become our two unique, project. And then the second big thing is conservation. We have a consultant hired from Delhi, and all major conservation technique is, as we have been discussing right now, is a preventive measure. We are situated in place, Dharamsala is supposed to be the second, rainiest city in the world. So this 3 month of monsoon is very, very, harsh on us. And we use dehumidifier and AC and the ambience control mechanism to make sure that we deal with the object very least. We make sure that the ambience is controlled. And these are the few of technique. Whenever we get object, we try to document, we try to do, screening of the object. And the third and the most important part, because we are here as an ambassador of the Tibetan who are inside Tibet. We are just maybe 0.5% of the Tibetan outside Tibet. We are 150,000 Tibetan in exile community. Almost 99.5% are in Tibet. So they don't have voice. So we, each of us, are trying to be, vocal about what they are thinking, what they are, desiring inside Tibet. So this connection is very, very important. We spend around 70% of our energy on this connection, trying to advocate about Tibet, trying to talk about our true memories, which of course they are being oppressed inside Tibet. And these are the few of the topic that this is a traveling exhibition topic. And one of the, I'm sorry, this is a little bit distressful. So one of the important topic is self-immolation. This happened in Delhi, Jantar Mandir. And till date, we have around 157 Tibetan who have burned themselves. And out of that, 136 have lost their life. So it started from 2009 and it's still going on. And few of the other, the traveling exhibition, these are few of the images. We have traveled extensively across the world, mainly in India, because in India we have around 45 different Tibetan settlement. We have Tibetan settlement mainly in South India, Karnataka and all this, and also in some part of Himachal. So we go across this Tibetan settlement, try to educate our younger generation and our elders about, our own history. And the second thing is, whenever we go outside, we, as like this platform, we try to talk with our, friends. So for last 25 years, we went across different countries and try to advocate about Tibet. And this could be, relevant to Victoria, because we do a lot of temporary exhibition, and we invite, exhibitioner or the who have some. But our objective is to show something on Tibet, something related to the, the culture aspect of Tibet. So we have the online form and everything is there, so you can apply. And every quarterly we change our temporary exhibition inside our museum. And as of now, we are a proud member of the few of the international association, starting with the Site of Conscience, and also the American Alliance of Museum, and the International Human Rights Museum in Asia Pacific, and the ICOM as well. So I leave you with this powerful quote from His Holiness Dalai Lama, because we all know that His Holiness Dalai Lama has not been an extraordinary, because he have not avoided the suffering. There are a lot of suffering that happened to him. But what is so unique about His Holiness is he rather transform it into his own favor. So we are right now in very peculiar world where, every now and then we see, the wars happening right now, then all the, countries are engulfed into the Middle East. So I think this His Holiness Dalai Lama's quote that, if you want other to be happy, practice compassion. If you want yourself to be happy, practice compassion. Because the ahimsa and karuna, these are the two main weapons, and Gandhiji to some extent have, modernized this ahimsa in the form of satyagraha and all this, but we have not touched too much on this karuna aspect. So that is what His Holiness has been trying to revive and trying to, give a modern aspect of karuna, because this is something which the world must take care into their own, welfare. So thank you so much for having me here. Thank you all the dignitaries, and also the Ashwini-ji for taking us around this beautiful museum. So thank you so much. And if you have any question, yeah.
Have a glimpse of the art objects, if possible, at least Tibetan dolls.
Tibetan dolls.
Is it possible? Thank you.
Because I can only show you if this internet, we have an interactive website where I can show you a few of the art that we have. But without showing, we have very limited artifacts, particularly on doll. But if you happen to visit Dharamsala, this institute called Nurbulinga, where they have a museum pertaining to the Tibetan doll, which were made by Tibetan monk who are specialized in making this doll. So if you, we don't have, because as I said, our museum is primarily the, mostly on political, because we belong to the Central Tibetan administration. So our main objective is on to make sure that, our voices are being heard. So this doll is a museum, is a kind of, semi-autonomous museum which is situated in Dharamsala. Right. So that doll museum is primarily making around that costume and jewelry. Also, aristocrat, what kind of costume they wear when we have the aristocracy in Tibet. And maybe I ask my friends from museum to maybe help me, or if they have any other thoughts to answer this question. So we are as a team, as I said, so I direct the museum, but there are many staff who look after the verticals of each of, as I said, connection and collection. Yeah.
Tashdele and Tujay for that wonderful talk. I just wanted you to maybe introduce the audience, because I've been to the museum. I've written a piece on the Tibet Museum actually. So if you could tell the audience a bit about the old museum compared to the new Dantongkhang, because this was begun, I think the new museum, it builds on that whole idea of curating trauma, curating absence, and then it kind of segregates into resistance, exile, occupation, and if you can introduce to the audience here about some of those key ideas which form the main sort of museological thrust or impetus of your museum, that would be great. And thanks for introducing us to the Tibet Museum. Thank you again.
This is really interesting, and touch the leg to you as well. Respecting time, I have not, touched on the current. So I'm going to take some time here, because what he asked, we can have a brochure. Can we have a brochure? So I'll leave the brochure here as well. Thank you so much for visiting our museum. And our museum, as you see here, is primarily divided into 10 different gallery or 10 different topic. As he said, starting from the introduction of Tibet and the brief historical timeline of Tibet. So I'll touch a little bit on each of these. I think you can anytime search it online. So this is what you see in our brochure, the planogram of our museum. And these are some of the educational programs. So we have the Tibet Awareness Talk series. So every bi-monthly, we, as you have this conference room, you use it. So similarly, we invite, expertise on Tibet, particularly on Tibet, and we invite them. And if someone of you happen to be in a museum, please let us know in advance. So we ask them to please help us in making this Tibet Awareness program running. And I'll try to see if these are not in. So as I said, these are all random. But yes, of course, with this we can clearly see what all the museums cater to. There are 10 different themes, primarily talking about the past glory of Tibet, and how Tibet and China are completely different sovereign country. There are many evidence, many evidence, and we have been collecting it for over a period of time. And recently we inaugurated a very important temporary exhibition, that is the life and legacy of Sir Basil Gaul. So Sir Basil Gaul is a political officer of the British India in Sikkim in 1912 till 1945. So he was the one who is the head of British India Sikkim, looking after Bhutan, looking after Tibet, trying to find the diplomacy between these countries. And we are very fortunate that we got the original document that's been sent from His Holiness Dalai Lama and our the president of Tibet in 1947 to Sir Basil Gaul. That is the original document that's sent to Sir Basil Gaul in Sikkim, and we have shown this as a part of our exhibition. And we invited the granddaughter of Sir Basil Gaul. She was also there. So at now our temporary exhibition is on that the topic of Sir Basil Gaul and Tibet. Yes, so I think this is self-explanatory, and we also talk about the future aspect of Tibet. What exactly we are looking forward. The Tibetan government in exile never, particularly under the leadership of His Holiness Dalai Lama, we never talk about the independence of Tibet. We talk about the genuine autonomy and the middle way between independent and the complete negation of what is exactly happening right now inside Tibet. That is something which none of the humanity will take it. Right now there is zero human right inside Tibet. So His Holiness Dalai Lama has devised a middle way approach, saying that we are ready to go inside Tibet and live under the People's Republic of China, provided they give us a genuine autonomy, safeguarding the internal the matters of Tibet. Of course, external matters can be taken care by the China. But whatever they do or whatever they document on the paper, they don't apply it. So that's what we are we are not reconciling with China as of now. Yes, thank you.
My name is Tashi, and I teach at Vidyashakhar College. I have a question. Actually, I don't specialize or research in this particular topic, but through my friend with whom I sometimes have interaction, he is basically doing his PhD on modern art in Tibet or in exile. So my question to you is there any initiative taken by the Tibet Museum to purchase or to have ownership about the many modern arts that is mushrooming within exile in Tibet? And I often got to hear that they are being sold, and some of them are very great renowned artists. And I'm sure when we say modern art, there is a whole element of expression, right, and cultural aspect, and what is going on in Tibet and also in India. So is there such initiative taken for the procurement of such modern art by the youngsters in Tibet, in India, or abroad? Thank you.
So as of now, as I said, we falls under the bureaucratic department, particularly the Central Tibetan Administration. So there have been a lot of discussion with the senior management, because the time has come that we need to purchase, if required, some of the important, not only the modern art, but there are many evidence across the world which talks about the the evidence substantiating the independent nature of Tibet. There are many, the Young Husband expedition to Tibet in 1903 and 4. There are a lot of documents that's been, shared with us, which are now in England. And likewise, there are many across the archival of the different countries. So we have been, talking with the senior management, and as of now, we haven't purchased even a single artifact on the making of this museum. All the artifacts that we displayed and that we have, 1,300, are all generously donated by the people, and that's why this museum, the Tibet Museum, over the last 25 years, if you see, have evolved from the government museum to more the people's museum, because all the artifacts are donated and they become the part of this museum. They are the one who is telling the story. They are the one who is making this museum. So that is exactly what our the prime objective of making this museum at the beginning itself, because we directly want to challenge the Chinese narrative. Because in China, if you search the Tibet Museum, there you will see two Tibet museums, one in Lhasa and one in Dharamsala that we run, right? The one in the Lhasa is, of course, much bigger in size, and they have around maybe 2 to 3 lakh artifact. But all the narrative comes from top down. So we deliberately challenge that. We don't have any artifact. As I said, the oldest artifact would be 100 years. Because when my grandparents came to India, they don't come with all the belongings. They just want to survive. They just want to run away from the threat. So right now we are not purchasing, but of course the talk is going on, and in future, as you said, there are many young artists. Particularly, we have seen a lot of. Recently, we inaugurated the Art Council of Tibet, and making sure that all the artists, comes under one umbrella. So maybe in future we can have more collaboration with them as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful words. I would like to ask a question that you have mentioned some pictures. You have been collecting so many pictures. The boys who have burnt themselves. So, what is the real? What is the reason? And I want to know the real reason for burning themselves.
I think the main, if you look at all these 157 Tibetan who have burned themselves, there are two main asking when they burn themselves. The first one is the speedy return of His Holiness Dalai Lama to Tibet. Whenever they burn, they pray that His Holiness Dalai Lama return to Tibet as soon as possible. That is very common across these people who self-immolate. And the second one is asking for the genuine human right inside Tibet. So these are the two last vote of all the people who burn themselves. And as I said, out of 157, 136 have lost their life. And that's sad, when in Tunisia, one of the street holder, he burned himself in, I think, 2008-7. There's an Arab Spring, which subsequently happened because of this one man burning themselves. And in 1970, I think one of the Thai monk who meditated in the street and burned himself, the regime got toppled. But when it comes to Tibet, 157 is very small in number. So it's something that the world need to look at, because, and none of them, while burning, they just pray and they make sure that they will not harm to the other people. None of them jump. They can easily go and become a modern day, I should say, bombing machine. They can easily do that, right? But none of them just I have the footage, but I'll not want to show that. They just pray. They they take the photo of His Holiness Dalai Lama, because inside Tibet, if you are found with a small portrait of His Holiness Dalai Lama, you will be taken to jail without asking single question. If you find a small portrait of His Holiness Dalai Lama, you will be put in jail for 2 years, arbitrary detention, because His Holiness Dalai Lama is considered as a separatist, anti-Chinese or anti-nationalist. Yeah.
I have one question, which I actually don't feel like asking after this heavy conversation. You spoke about the family album project that you are doing, so maybe you can tell us something more about that, and how do you see it develop in the future?
See, for the displaced community like us, this tool has been very effective as of now, and thank you for asking this. We are tying up with the Tibetan community in Canada, because right now, as I said, Tibetan are spread across 27 different countries, which we can take it in both way. In certain way, we can say our cause is becoming diluted, but in other way, the younger generations are coming up. They know how to advocate the parliament in their host country. So these young people, younger generation, are becoming very, very important advocacy in their host countries. So in Canada, we are already tying up with one of the community center, and they are trying to pilot with the 10 family member, and they are learning it from us. So we'll be having more conversation on this, and if we will do some wonder with this small island of project, we'll probably do it with 27 different countries. So you can see the ripple effect of these things. Yeah, thank you.
A very small look into what Tibet and the identity means And I'm sure all of us are now very eager to know more, to support, to be more aware about all of this. So thank you so much for your time. We wish your team all the best, and we hope you have a good time in Kolkata for the remaining days that you are here. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. And I invite you all to please visit Tibet Museum in Dharamsala. It is weather-wise, it is much better. Jokes apart, but of course we will be in open arm to invite you and your family. Please let us know. There's much more things to see if you really want to know about Tibet, the true historical background and the true culture of Tibet. You please visit Dharamsala. And let us know. Thank you so much.
Please do join us for some tea outside.